Shooting. Hi, I'm sitting here with Lee Odden. Did I spell that correctly?
Yeah.
Lee Odden?
Odden, Odden.
Odden? Are you Danish?
Yeah,
You are?
yeah.
So that's a Danish name?
Uh-huh.
Odden? From the Vikings? The hero Viking?
Oh, not
Really?
that. Well, that's spelled differently. That's Odin, but at least in the U.S. it's spelled Odin. I don't know.
Wow.
But I did grow up learning about Norse mythology for sure. Yeah.
Wow. However, we are at the PRSA Digital Impact Conference in New York
Yes.
City, and I was so lucky to meet you here because you recently written a new book called Optimize. Will you please tell us about a little about your new book?
Sure. Optimize is a very customer-centric content marketing book. So unlike the notion of optimize thrown around in the marketing circles, that means search engine optimization. This book is very focused on answering why. Why do you want to use these channels or these applications or tactics to market to your customers? Find out a little more about who those customers are and work an editorial plan that gives them the information they need to guide themselves through a sales process. And that same formula of empathizing with a particular audience and what their pain points and goals are also applies to media relations, or what I like to call pull PR, meaning that in concert with pushing out messages through press release distribution and media relations, you can also create the kind of content that journalists and analysts and bloggers are actually looking for. And the sale isn't necessarily a transaction or a conversion, but it is convincing journalists or the media that you as a subject matter expert are the best answer for the need that they have in the content that they're creating for their publication.
And that's what we call earned media.
Sure.
To be searchable.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, and so there's optimize is this notion of how to make things better, how to make them perfect. And there are so many different things to pay attention to in this social world that we're in. So that leaves a lot of people confused about, well, should I be on Pinterest? Should I be using Flickr? Should I be using Facebook images or whatever? And we help answer that question by creating or talking about processes in the book that help companies be adaptable. How can we structure things in such a way that you always have some insight into what customers are motivated by? Not just that Pinterest is popular, but are my customers actually using Pinterest? Are the people who influence my customers using Pinterest? Answer that question, and we can have a sustainable marketing or public relations communications approach that is relevant always and forever.
So this book is not only to do with optimize your business to be reachable or searchable for your customers, also for your influencers, right?
Absolutely.
Or people that matters.
Yeah.
It could be the customers as well.
Exactly. And in the beginning of the book talks about planning, how to do audits, how to do customer research, and how to develop a roadmap or strategy approach to what goals we're trying to accomplish. In the second phase of the book, the bulk of the book is diving deep into specific tactics. So it could actually be used as a workbook, and it flows in a linear fashion. So if you're not even familiar with content-based marketing, you could pick up this book and go through from start to finish. And if you are familiar with content marketing or SEO or social media marketing, you can actually dive into specific areas that you don't have competency in and be able to use them right away.
Okay. What do you think when you're talking about content marketing, for example, a lot of these content marketing tools like Marketo, HubSpot and stuff, they are, streaming for to be able to create content, campaigns and stuff to get their audience email addresses so they can be,
Right.
What do you think about that kind of a approach?
To the extent that that audience will respond to email communications, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be testing. And part of the adaptable approach that I talk about in the book is always be testing. And so, if you've got to start somewhere. And so if I anticipate or hypothesize that email communications is what will help me increase transactions or retain my existing customers, I've got to try that out. So a platform like HubSpot or something like that can be very instrumental, but I would say, don't use it as a blanket answer. HubSpot or somebody else, some other platform like that isn't necessarily going to be the answer for everything. The other thing I would say is these are just tools. All the software that's available to us, they're just tools, and tools are only as good as the expertise of the people that are using them.
Yes.
So you could go use a tool and make magic with it. I may try and use that same tool with a lack of expertise, and I fall flat on my face. That doesn't mean the tool is bad. It just speaks to the capabilities that are necessary to make these tools work.
For me, you are an expert on CEO, search engine optimizing, right? And I think your company Top Rank is also based on the search engine optimizing, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, the roots of our company are as a PR firm,
Yeah.
and I came in as a search guy,
Yes.
and we combined the two,
Yeah.
and the baby that happened was content.
Yes.
Content marketing. So search as a method of discovery
Okay.
is very strong for our agency, yes.
Okay. So my question is there a trend where people starting to ask their networks instead of just going to Google and search
Well, so
for it?
actually, yeah. So we've got a lot of experience with the customer journey through search and social as they go through the sales process. Here's an example, and I've got a story that the book opens up with, where I brought my son to New York, and in planning the trip, we asked Twitter, what are kid-friendly things to do here? And so we went to Twitter and Facebook and asked that question, got recommendations, but to validate the recommendations, we went to Google, right? We Googled the names of those places to find out where they were, to find out reviews, recommendations within, user-generated content. And then we went back and we shared photos and information back to social networks about the experiences we were having. So people who gave the suggestions were able to see that we actually used them. And at the end, I put all that into a blog. So now people can use the information we found through social and search as a resource to help them plan their own kid-friendly trip to New York.
I used to do it in a different way. I used first to go to Google, and then when I find the results of Google, I used to test these results on my network.
Sure.
So that's another way to do it.
Exactly, and the point is this journey that can weave back and forth. There's a study that was done, and it's on our site, but it was talking about 48% of respondents in this study were led to purchase through a combination of search and social interactions. 51% by search alone, and only 1% by social all by itself.
Yeah. So what do you think then about Google Plus social search?
Yeah, well,
What is that? How do you say social?
Search
world
plus your world.
plus
yeah,
your world.
yeah. So, I think Google is trying to reinforce its position as a place for advertisers,
Yes.
and they realize time spent online is significantly being allocated to social activities like Facebook specifically. And so the advertisers that spend their money with Facebook are maybe not spending with Google as much. So Google's got to reinforce their position, as I said, and create a social experience for people that hopefully they can turn into something that's going to attract advertisers. Now, as users, we don't care about any of that, but they've got to do this in such a way that it's a good user experience. So they're anticipating that a combination of the algorithmic powerhouse of filtering out information combined with individual editorial decisions that we make to share things will give the user a better experience. And in some cases it does, in a lot of cases it does not.
Are you using Google search, social search?
Most of my searches are not logged into Google, and no. I do use searches. I do use searches where I'm logged into Google, but when I'm actually looking for something I want to find I want a pure search experience as much as possible. At the same time, I absolutely use Google Plus as a way to surface new information. The people who I've collected into circles, I've been very thoughtful about who they are and the kind of information they share. And so I find going to Google Plus to be a very rich experience as a technology-focused, marketing, PR-focused person at finding things that I'm not getting on Twitter, that I'm not getting on Facebook. But if I was interested in, basket weaving or something like that, I don't know that I would be. I don't think consumers are getting the same experience.
fragmented world, social media world, how important is your website compared to other pages?
Sure.
Google Plus pages and Facebook. What would
Well,
you say?
I think the brand awareness, especially top of funnel types of interactions, can happen anywhere on the web. You know, can I create a positive brand experience with a prospect or a consumer on Facebook? Sure. On in a publication because I got media placement? Sure. It doesn't have to happen on your website. We're big fans of a hub and spoke publishing model where there's a center repository of expertise.
Yes.
And a company website or a blog or something like that are excellent sources of tools for that hub. And then the spokes, the channels of distribution around that hub, are oftentimes social distribution or email newsletters and information distribution and syndication. So I think a website plays a very important role, but it's not as important as it used to be. And people who think they've got to drive consumers to their website in order to create awareness are leaving a lot of money, so to speak, on the table.
So how would you, place your homepage, your website into this ecosystem? How would they connect to each other?
I think the homepage, as it depends on the homepage, right? It depends on if the company has socialized. As people optimize their websites for searchability, are they socializing their homepage or website for shareability and social interaction? So a typical company homepage might be, information, product information, and that's it. Maybe a news ticker that changes once in a while. But a homepage that's more socially focused or that wants to inspire interaction is going to create some opportunities for comments or sharing or other syndication of engaged content and syndicating it onto the homepage of the website, like positive things that are said about us on Twitter, syndicating that to our homepage, or things that we're doing, live streaming or whatever, right? And so if a company is creating a social experience on their company homepage, then I think that's a powerful thing to do, and it would make sense to drive traffic to that. You think about, why is it that one would want to connect with a brand? If I'm not familiar with you, I have a problem and you have a solution, in my journey, it may be that I want to go directly to your product page and buy something because it just makes sense. But with other things, like in a B2B scenario, sales cycles are longer. There's more romance involved in educating the customer to buy that $2 or $10 or $50 million thing. Then I think it's important to consider all the different touch points out on the web that could influence that consumer to feel confident that you're the best answer to their problem. And the role a homepage would play in that is the formal, right? Who are they? What's their brand? What do they do? But after that, there's no reason to go back to that stiff, formal homepage.
So what will happen with the newsroom? I guess most of these guys sitting in this conference have a newsroom as well on the web page.
Sure.
Probably mostly created for journalists, traditional journalists, and others, maybe bloggers and stuff. What would happen with that, do you think?
I think the notion of a social hub is an evolution or an augmentation to a newsroom. And when I say social hub, I mean aggregated and curated content about the brand's activities out on the social web at large and bringing that into a central location. So you literally can see real-time commentary about that brand. I think that would be an important evolution of a traditional newsroom, which is archiving press releases in high-res glamour shots, B-roll, executive bios and case studies and so forth. As someone who appreciates search as a method of discovery or as a method of connecting with customers, any kind of content is a potential entry point into a website. So, while a journalist may go to a newsroom and maybe they'll be motivated by a traditional newsroom, maybe not. However it is that they got there, I think having press releases, having images and video optimized for search is a good idea because they're hooks in the water. They're extra potential entry points for links and for visitors. But I think if you evolve that newsroom to connect with the brand's participation on the web, you're providing a much better user experience for anybody that finds it.
As a former journalist, I think for me it's a good idea to follow companies on Facebook or Google Plus or Twitter, but there's a lot of crap there for me as a journalist because there's a lot of end consumer communications, and I don't care about that. But there's some good stuff as well there. But what I really would like is to have this core information, the exclusive core information with all the details and stuff that really makes sense. The problem is that these newsrooms used to be so boring. You know, so what you can do with a traditional newsroom is to make them more live and more comprehensive and more sexy for me as a journalist as well. Do you see what I mean?
Well, if you think it like the FordStory.com started out
Yeah.
as a sort of disconnected newsroom to supply journalists with information about that whole scenario that happened with funding of bailout of automotive companies in the United States, and Ford wanted to tell its story about how it wasn't taking money from the government. Well, that has turned into a really interesting website. I mean, it was interesting to start with because they made a point to provide different types of media and different information. Instead of just publishing their own narrative or their own stories, they accept stories from consumers as well. So maybe in the start it would have been more useful to you as a journalist because it was just focused on creating information that was directed towards the media. But it started to gain so much popularity and people were asking, or whatever the reason was, now they have it organized so that fans of the Ford brand can actually supply their stories, and it's become a very powerful asset in the Ford's marketing mix.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Lee. That was not so much about the book, but a lot of
It is actually.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with the book, and the thing is it's we're talking about a point of view that we've been evangelizing at Top Rank for years, and this book is just a print manifestation, or if you have a Kindle or Barnes Nook, a digital manifestation of how we approach this notion of content and search and social holistically.
Yeah. Okay, let's go buy it. I prefer the Kindle version though.
Okay.
Thank you.